Hello, everyone. It's me, Andrew. I hope you're doing well out there. If you're watching live, welcome. If you're watching on the replay, hi to you as well. It was a gray and kind of cold day here in Ligonier, but we still got a lot of work done. I don't know about y'all, but there's our driveway here at the cottage has been a little bit iffy because of erosion and snow plowing. So it created kind of this ditch in between the driveway and the road. So today, I spent part of today filling that in so that my teeth don't get rattled shut. Every time we go over that little hump. Hopefully y'all are doing well out there. It seems like we've been away forever, and it kind of has been a little bit. We have been super busy getting ready for the Handmade Arcade, which was this past weekend. So we weren't live for most of last week. And then yesterday we went on a field trip to pick up some goodies for the shop. So we couldn't go live yesterday. So I feel like, what exactly? It's a little bit stumbling a time here because I'm getting back into the groove of things. So yeah, I see a couple of folks are watching. Marianne's watching. Hey, Marianne. Harry's watching. Hey, Harry. Bonnie says, "Hi, Andrew. How did the craft sale go?" It was okay. It was our first time doing it. So whenever we do a show for the first time, we kind of, moderate our expectations because you just never know. And I feel like with a lot of shows, you have to do them multiple times to kind of have people get to know you and know what to look for. But it was a really great opportunity, and we're so thankful for the Acre Partners for the opportunity to show at the Handmade Arcade. I don't think we would have been able to do it otherwise. Some people have been on the wait list for 10 years or so, and we were super lucky and were able to fast track it. We did make some sales, but it wasn't like, we weren't doing jumping jacks for joy because of the sales. But we met a lot of people and learned a lot. And I kind of feel like if we go forward doing the shows, or the physical markets, we should, like, I hate to say it, but like almost do like split personality, because there's work that I make that's more serious, that's more like for galleries and exhibitions and stuff. And then there's work that's more like ready to wear, more consumable. And the consumable stuff's like the fun, whimsical, fantastical stuff. And so I don't know. Maybe we'll start a new DBA, doing business as, I don't know, something fantastical. You know, just so that we can make sales still, but keep that kind of differentiation. So we'll see what happens with that. We've been talking about it. One of the nice things is that whenever we go on a trip or we do a show and we drive back, then William and I kind of talk about things because there's like nothing else you can do because you're kind of trapped together in a nice and loving way. But so it gave us an opportunity to talk about things, and we talked a lot. And we've been talking about the idea of doing that. So we'll see what happens. Marion says, given the opportunity, would you do it again? I think we would. I think because we've done it the first time, we were able to kind of gain experience, and we were able to listen to our customers and talk to them and see what they're interested in, and we can kind of tailor things to different price points. I didn't. I should. I kind of kicked myself for not walking around more, but I'm of that mind where if I leave the table, then I'm not going to make a sale potentially. But in reality, I probably should have done a little bit more market research by walking around and checking things out a little bit more. So, well, luckily William was able to walk around a little bit. It was a lot of work, and we didn't have as much prep time as we would have liked, but we worked pretty hard, and we got into a groove of making things. So that was nice. June is watching. Hey, June. And Teresa's watching. Hey, Teresa. So yeah, um, we've been super super duper productive and busy, and we'll have to do a tour of the cottage soon because we rearranged everything again, um, to get that workflow kind of down pack. And the more you're in a space, the more you kind of live with it, and you can kind of see where things flow and how you need to arrange things for like the most optimal kind of output. So we moved a bunch of furniture around. I built a table. There's a bunch of stuff that we did to kind of get that space a little bit better. And then plus we've been working on this new line that we made. And we're super excited about that. We've been working super hard. And yeah, Susie's watching. Hey, Susie. Jacqueline's watching. Hey, Jacqueline. So yeah, so I thought today we would catch up. We picked up some gemstone strands yesterday. Not as many as I would have liked, unfortunately. But we're going into kind of our slow season. So it's always kind of a gamble. But we took what we made at the Handmade Arcade and invested it in some new inventory. So hopefully you all will enjoy that. And also, I bought out a collection from a beader. So there's a ton of art beads that are coming soon to the website. Maybe here first, we'll see. And we're also talking about maybe possibly switching things around a little bit and going on a little bit later, because we say live at 5, but we're always a little bit late. Even on the best of days, we're always like a couple minutes late. So we've been talking about maybe 5:30 or so. We'll see. We have to play around with it because we don't want to compete with any of our friends who are also going live at the same time. But it's kind of frantic. Like I don't know about y'all, but I've been rushing around. 5 o'clock is hard. Especially when I'm driving from the house over here. It's sometimes the we never have traffic except for at 5 o'clock. So maybe we'll see. So yeah. Cherie's watching. Howdy. So it says, ooh la la, gemstone. Yeah, just a few. Susan's watching. Hey, Susan. So yeah, I think I got some good stuff. And then today I wanted to show you the things that we made for the Handmade Arcade and things that I've been working on in the background for different exhibitions and stuff. So I thought it might be nice to kind of have a relaxing day to kind of get back in the groove of things since we've been out of the loop for a while. This is always kind of a hectic time of year because we've got so many different things that we've got going on. And like there's a holiday party tomorrow night and I want to go, but also we kind of rely on these lives. to keep things going. So it's hard to justify being away too long. So we'll see. Um, Shakita's watching. Hey there. Am I saying your name right? Let me know if I'm saying your name right. Diane's watching. Hi, Diane. All right. So I'm going to flip things around. And you're going to see the ceiling for a moment. And then I'll get busy showing you some goodies. How about it? Hey, Michelle. Michelle's watching too. Hey, Michelle. All right. Here we go. How about it? So one of the things that I worked on, and I've been working on this for a while, but Shaquita, she said, close enough. It's Shaquita. Sorry about that. So one of the things that has been kind of bothering me is the uptick of violence against LGBTQIA, the LGBTQI community. And so I hate to bring it down, but it's something that's been on my mind a lot recently. There was a shooting in Colorado Springs at Club Q, and then we recently were put on alert that there could be threats of domestic terrorism against the LGBTQIA community. In Columbus, they had people shut down the power grids so that people couldn't go to a drag show. Um, and so, I hate to mention things like that, but it is something that is on my mind a lot lately. Um, and part of it is out of self-defense. You don't want to walk blindly into a situation, but also, it's just good to be aware of your surroundings, right? So for me, I've been thinking about these things, and whenever I think about things, they kind of infiltrate my artwork. And one of the things I've been doing lately is creating a series of brooches, um, and other things that are jewelry pieces that are for the kind of the art jewelry that I make that are self portraits. And these are silhouettes. And I've actually shown how I saw these silhouettes out on my Instagram, which is now Andrew Thornton Artist. That's THORNTON. I know sometimes people forget the N and then they're like, I couldn't find you. So it's Andrew Thornton Artist on Instagram. And if you check out the reels, I show how I cut these out with a saw frame. So in case you are wondering how I make these, that's how most of these start out. Anyways, this is a piece that I made kind of in response to all of these things going on. I feel like as an artist, it's my job to almost chronicle the times that I'm a part of. Um, and so this piece it's not intended to be a pretty piece. I know somebody was like, oh, yikes. And then scary and things like that. And I'm like, what's more scary? Being out with your friends and then having that place shut up, that's more scary to me. Or not being able to walk down the street because you're afraid of getting a brick thrown at the back of your head. That's more scary and more yikes to me than this pendant. But, if that conveys that, then maybe it's an effective piece. Anyway, so this is the piece that I made. It's enamel on copper, and also I added pigment, and it's a bullseye, and I used a hammer to kind of knock away and distress some of that to show, that kind of fragile mental headspace. I used a prong kind of cage setting to grab it. Um, and this is the back, which I didn't show online. And there's a bullet the base of a bullet at the bottom there. Um, and I kind of almost like this side also, just the way it is. Um, so this is that piece. This is one of the pieces that I've been working on, a part of that series that I've been working on. If you want to see more pieces from that series, you can check them out on my Instagram. That's probably the best place to see them. Another piece that I've been working on for another show, which I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it in on time or not, is this Baba Yaga house with really long legs. And it's all copper, fold form. And then I soldered the the chicken feet, and it stands up. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to gild the inside of the little house and then maybe put a little light in it, so that it almost looks like eyes. And then I'm going to try to build some other things that go along with this so that it's not by itself. But if you're not familiar with Baba Yaga, she's kind of like this witch that lives in the woods, and she lives in a house that's on chicken feet, and you kind of have to answer riddles to get into the house. Otherwise, it turns away, and you can't get into the door unless you answer the riddles. So yeah, that's one of the components that I've been working on. I've been working on this for a couple of months now, but I really haven't had too much time. But I finally had a little bit of time that I carved out to start finishing this up. And yeah, it looks better when it's long, like long perspective, because you can get it all in there. And yeah, so thanks. I see a lot of comments. And yeah, so that's one of the things I've been working on for my own kind of personal artwork. And then for the show, one of the things that we did is we created a whole line of pieces for the show, and they're based off of. I took a class over there this summer with Tanya Crane, who is an amazing artist, and I took the class at Touchstone, and I also was fortunate enough to take a workshop with her at Contemporary Craft in Pittsburgh. And she's known for this graffito technique, which I've tried to make my own and kind of play with it so that it's not, a knockoff of her work, and so it's more along the lines of mine. And one of the things that I've been trying to do is bridge my fine art with my jewelry. So I've been making these pieces with enamel. And this is a true collaboration between me and William. He enameled the bases of these, and then I did this graffito work on top of it. And if you don't know what graffito is, it's actually a ceramic technique where you scratch away the design. It's almost like a scratch board, and it reveals the image underneath. Um, so this one is a piece that I made over the summer and kind of kickstarted the idea for this collection. And we made a bunch of pieces. My goal is to make 100, and I didn't make 100. I made only so many. Now I'm going to show you these ones, even though they're claimed already. This one is one of this skull. It's like wearing a flower crown. And I did this on a thinner gauge metal and I cut it out. So I like that. It's nice and kind of lightweight, but still has a big visual impact. And here's another piece that is in that same style. This one's also claims, so don't get your heart attached to it. Of course, if you like anything, I may be moved to um, make some more. I am making some more, so I don't know what I'm talking about. So these are sold as pendants, but they come with a complimentary chain, and you get what you get kind of with this. But this is a deer. Maybe I'll line them up. Otherwise, we're gonna be here all night. Um, and then here's another of the floral skull. Harry Wood said these resemble woodcuts, and yeah, I agree. They do. I love woodcuts, and I love printing. And I don't really have a print setup here, but I really enjoy it when I did it in college. Um, and I always think about doing it more. I think one of the things that why the printmaking class was so revolutionary to me was before I was making like one of a kind pieces, and everything was kind of like one offs. And the print class really made me think about working in multiples and also working in series and also creating things that were a little bit more accessible too. So that really had an impact on me as a maker. And definitely you can see that reflected in this body of work. So I have a kind of cosmic snake, and I have a bird with a crown, of course. Um, Bonnie says, love the deer too. Thank you. Fran says, Andrew, you are so talented. Thank you. So there's that one. And yeah, so we had an okay showing. We saw it's so weird because people are like, oh well, how much did you make? And I'm pretty upfront with my numbers with my fellow show people. And when I told them, they're like, oh, that's great. But for what we do sometimes um in the shows that we do, um in the DIY sector of the jewelry making community, I'm a little bit more well known. So this was a totally new market for us, or relatively new market. So this is an owl with a crown, a little startled expression. So you kind of get expectations, and I try to moderate those expectations. This is a hummingbird, but somebody said they look like a wood thrush, and I can see that. One of the thing or wood thrush, I think that's the right name. But yeah, it's hard to show it as a hummingbird when you don't have more of the body. So I can see what they mean with that. It's got a floral background. Um, and then this is another bird with a crown. I love birds with crowns. To me, birds symbolize freedom. Um, and it doesn't matter what kind of bird, but as I always associate birds with freedom because they can fly. And the crown to me is a symbol of sovereignty, and sovereignty is like when you rule something. And so for me, it's kind of like you rule yourself, or you rule your freedom. So here's another bird. And then I really want to do this, and I don't know if I'm going to have time to do this, but I want to do a whole series of these in botanicals. And this is a pansy, and I think that um, what I'm going to try to do is incorporate some colors into these, where I go back and paint on top of these with enamel paints, and so that they're more readily identifiable. I've got another series that I'm working on, We hit the ground running when we came back. We went to the studio, or actually I crashed, but then right after I crashed, I went to the studio and we started a whole new line of these enameled pendants. So we're hit, we're bit by the bug. But anyway, so I'm thinking about doing a series of these and doing like the language of flowers and having kind of a whole collection of these. I love plants and I love the symbolism and stories behind the plants. So, yeah. And up next is this bunny rabbit, a little chunky thing. We have a bunny that's in our yard, and we call the bunny Marmot's Way, after the number one ladies detective agency. I don't know if you're familiar with those books or that TV show, but I was smitten with that show, and so the bunny rabbit is traditionally built, as they say in that show. And yeah, so there's a bunny, and there's a grasshopper, which is supposed to be for good luck. And I've got a nest. Now, I did this nest a little bit differently, where I did it with this regular sgraffito technique, and then I took a diamond bit afterwards and did made the nest, scored the lines for the nest. That was kind of a pain in the butt, so I probably won't do that anymore. But it does add an extra layer of texture, which I thought was pretty cool. Some of these, actually most of these, I sealed again. So that's why they're so shiny. Usually they're a little bit matte, but I sealed them again because I like that smoothness. I like how they feel when they're coated like that. So this is another bird nest one, but it's got a blue background. It's got a robin's egg blue kind of background. And let me move these out of the way because otherwise it's going to get all jumbledy and you won't be able to see anything. You won't be able to see the trees for the forest, as they say. So yeah, we've been super busy producing these and making them. Um, I took a solid week off of all of my other work to kind of focus and dial down into these. And when I work, I generally work several hours. Um, so it's usually like a couple, what somebody would consider as a day of work. I usually get 2 days of work because I'm working constantly. So I sleep very little, and I know it's not the most healthy of things, but oh well, that's the way I work. So it's kind of like doing a double shift. So this is another of the new pieces. It's a hand, kind of one of those Victorian hands holding a flower. And there's a debate about what kind of flower it is. Somebody said that it was a hellebore, and another said that it was a daffodil. So I guess I'll leave that up to your interpretation. Here's another deer pendant. Marianne said, bunnies are a spirit animal for me, a symbol to face my fears and move out into the world. That's an interesting thing that, because I do these things called walking meditations, and it's kind of like where you hold a question in your mind and then you go for a walk. And usually, like something will appear that's like symbolically your answer. And a lot of times I get the bunny. And for me, the bunny is kind of like the get to work. So um, it's interesting that you have that kind of interpretation. Here's another deer. And here's another skull. Um, sometimes people, when they see the skulls, they get a little bit scared. But for me, the skulls are a remembrance to live life. It's kind of the memento mori kind of thing where it's a part of life. Sometimes when people like, especially in like the tarot deck, when people draw the death card, they get scared, but you generally it's kind of the end of one journey and the beginning of another journey. So for me, it's all about transformation and kind of remembering you're alive, and you should take advantage of that. So this one I kind of added the floral elements, and now this one, I started it off as a coyote, but it kind of morphed into a wolf a little bit more, I think. I need to practice on the ears and stuff because that's kind of the telltale signs. And so it's got the night, the moon in the background. And it kind of looks a little bit like a fox. So they're all kind of related, right? So um, and then the heron. I don't know if you read The World as We Know It by Alice Hoffman, but there's this beautiful heron in it. And when we grew up, we lived on a lake, and that sounds fancy, but it really wasn't that fancy. And there were these beautiful herons that would come in. And I used to spend hours. I made this little raft that I would kind of like a um, Huckleberry Finn style kind of raft where all these boards were kind of nailed together, and we actually used the styrofoam. There were these insulated panels that my dad had, and I used that for the base that got infested with fire ants. So that's another story. But so I would sit on that little raft or pontoon and watch the herons and the reeds. And so I have very fond memories of herons. And when I read that book, I just loved it. Um, Bonnie says very detailed work looks difficult. It can be. Sandra says I love that theory about the skull. Never thought of it that way. Hi Andrew. Hi Sandra. Teresa says really like that book by Alice Hoffman. She just came out with a new one called The Bookstore Sisters, and it's a short story. And of course, I spent my Audible credit on it, even though it was only an hour long. Or so. It was like an hour and 20 minutes. But I am a smitten kitten for her work, and she's coming out with a new one, and I can't wait for it. Here's the sea turtle. When we were in Hawaii, we were driving around the North Shore, and this is in Oahu, and there, I believe it's Long Beach. I can't remember the name of the beach there, but there's a beach there, and we thought there were all these people huddled around rocks, and we were like, what are they doing? So we went up to go and see, and there were all these sea turtles just hanging out in the sand, just chilling out there, and people were all getting, I took a picture, everybody's taking pictures with them, and it was really a beautiful kind of memory. And it was just at the sunset where the light was this beautiful kind of rosy color, and it was such a happy memory. And that trip, we found out that Cynthia was pregnant with Max, and Azalea was there, and we had a really great family trip. So yeah, I always hold a special place for sea turtles. And when I was in high school, there were also sea turtles in Florida. And there were all these things that we were doing to try to get people to turn lights off at certain times when they're hatching so that they wouldn't get confused and so that they would follow the moon and all that. But that's all. And then here's another one of the nest. This is kind of in a wheat bundle. Wheat bundle. Um, at the time that seemed like a good idea, but I don't know. Um, and then here's another one. This is a cardinal. And it's kind of interesting when I do things that are so recognizable when there's color, but then doing them in a different color, it can kind of be a little bit tricksy. Um, because when you think of cardinals, the first thing you probably think about is like that bright red color. And then when it's in a different color, it kind of throws you. But this is supposed to be a cardinal. And I have a seahorse. At first, I was not into this. I made this and I was like, I thought it looked kind of busy. And then William was like, just put it away and come back to it and see what you think. And I did. And I actually really like it now. So you never know. Sleep on things and maybe you'll wake up to a new perspective. Here's a butterfly. It's kind of a stylized butterfly. I was going to do a super detailed one, but I decided to do it more stylized like that. In theory, I'm going to do some more with butterflies. When I was in college, I was obsessed with butterflies. And one of my shows during school, I had this studio room that I could use for my exhibition. And I did all these printouts on clear media acetate or wet media acetate. So they were these translucent, yet colorful butterflies. And I'm sure I still have some of these floating around somewhere. And I hung probably hundreds, if not thousands, on the ceiling. So, and they were all at different heights and levels. So it looked like there was a swarm of butterflies. And for me, butterflies are a symbol of transformation and life also. Here's another bird. I love birds. And another skull. And this one has a little mushroom popping out of its head. I also like mushrooms. They're I think it was called Mexican Gothic. I could be making this up, but there was a book and it was all about how like the mushrooms were in this kind of like modern day kind of like Bram Stoker style horror story about mushrooms in Mexico, and it was pretty good. Um, and then another tree. I love trees. And here is another bird. This one kind of looks like a house finch to me. And then this one's a unicorn. This one of a lot of them, this one probably looks the most like a woodcut to me. Um, and I remember looking through like these old fairy tales that had the woodcut, and I just love those. And there's another up in New York. There's a place called the Cloisters, and I believe it was the Rockefellers, and they bought this castle, and they built it, and then they bought the land across the river so that the view you wouldn't be you if you would be surrounded by this view of nature and it wouldn't be like encroached upon by the city. um, but also they're the home of the unicorn tapestries, which I think are so beautiful and so interesting too. There was a book that was written about him by Tracy Chevalier. I think that's how you say her name. I could be making this up, but I do remember at some point reading about the unicorn tapestries and liking the book and about dyeing the threads and the symbolisms of all the herbs and stuff that went into it. Um, but anyways, they're really beautiful, and it's one of those places that it seems almost out of time. so that when you go there, you're almost immersed so completely that you feel like you're in another place. Um, and so I always enjoyed going up there when I was living in New York, and I would look at the unicorn tapestries and the Tiffany stained glass windows, and enjoyed that quite a bit. And it was a quiet place too, which was also nice. And this is another piece that I did during that Tanya Crane class. And so it's a fern. Well, it's actually, I did this after I took her class. Um, I did a bunch of pieces afterwards. And this is one of them. It's a fern. And then there's like rue in the background. Suzanne says, you have the correct name of the book. Sandra says, I might have to get that sea turtle one. I love sea turtles. And Harry says, I just finished the first of a series and I'm on to the second, The Raven Song, a novel, The Conspiracy of Magic, Book 2, Luann G. Smith. I really like this series. I'll have to check it out. I just finished Mercedes Lackey. It was Hunter and Elite and Apex, and they were pretty good. They were kind of like Hunger Games a little bit, but with fairies and mythical creatures. So it was pretty good. I liked them. And I also, since I've been working a lot in the studio, I have been listening to a lot of books. And so I've just been going through one after the other. All right, so here's another skull, and this is a mushroom skull. And yeah, so if you're interested in any of the pieces that I've shown, all of those are listed online. That's allegorygallery.com. Those are, I believe there's a couple of them that are sold. Barb comes back tomorrow, so she'll take out whatever we've already sold. So don't be mad if you saw something and it's already taken. Now, here are ones that I worked on, but they're not online yet because I worked on them last night. I worked on a lot of stuff actually last night. So, yeah, let me put this over there. Here is one. I have to refine this a little bit. And when I go back, usually what I'll do is I'll go back and I'll darken the shadows. And it's a raccoon. Harry says, I've read a few of her books. Lackey is a great writer. Yeah, I enjoyed them. Right now I'm finishing up a book. It's by Bethany Adams, and they're The Return of the Elves. They're okay. They're just fun kind of elven romance novels, basically. And I got them for free on Audible, and then now I've since I've already listened to 9 of them, then I have to listen to I just have to finish all the series of them. I think what I'm gonna listen to next is The Wheel of Time, maybe. Um, I downloaded all the books for that. So I have this little raccoon, and I'm gonna play around with it so that it's a little bit crisper. And I didn't do the top coat on this, so you can kind of see when I don't do the top coat, it almost looks a little bit bubbly, and that's where where it's been scratched away. And I kind of like it and I kind of don't. It's a little bit distracting for the image. So we'll see about if I continue to add the top coat. I think it's a fun way to add a little bit of dimensionality. Like the nose, you can actually feel the nose. Cynthia said, so cute. You would love this technique, Cynthia. Next time you're here, I'll show you how to do it because it's a lot of fun, and you already do scratch board, so you'd pick it up really fast. Marianne says, I think I read all of Mercedes Lackey's books. Yeah, I haven't read that many of hers. I think I've read a couple of this series, but she's really prolific. She's written a lot of books. Um, and Teresa says, I raised a baby raccoon, and when he was large enough, he was released into the wild. That's cute. Um, and then I made this cat with a crown. I made another cat with a crown, but that one sold over the weekend. There was a bunch that I made. Like I made a dragonfly that sold. There were a bunch of owls that I made that sold, and yeah, this is one of the new ones. And then here's an eye. I made an eye. I made another eye before, and that one sold too. I still have to refine these a little bit more. But yeah, so those are those ones that are I just completed. Now I also made a series of pieces. I'm going to try to do this without dropping them. So these ones are they're done where I've made them on with mica in the background, so it kind of has an iridescence to it, and you can kind of see that kind of flash of green. And so I did a whole series of these kind of dark garden, and I made them for earrings. Let me see if I can do this without knocking the camera. I don't think I can. Well, maybe if I come in it sideways. So I didn't want to take them off the thing because then they would be kind of a pain to take off. Cynthia says, I love them on that chain. Thanks. The paperclip chain. So they're all different kinds. And with a background. So this one is blue. And you can see that blue when you hold it just right. But this is all done one at a time. This is not like I don't have a stamp for this or anything. This is this is all done one at a time. This is a pink one. It's real subtle pink though. And then I think this one is a match with that. That's a pink one. And yeah, this one's another blue one. I love the metallic or that kind of iridescence. And so I've been playing around with it. These ones are a little bit more matte, and I didn't top coat these because I wanted the iridescence to stay as shimmery as possible. There's another blue one. And so I made these earrings. And here's a gold one. There's that an orange one. I did gold and orange. And I believe this is a kind of a gold one as well. And so it's the same kind of pattern. But I love them. It reminds me almost of a textile. And so I just love that kind of pattern. That floral pattern. That's the dense kind of floral blossoms. And then the fact that they're black with that kind of iridescence to them, that's why I call these my night garden pieces. And they've got a lot of texture to them still, which I think is pretty cool. And there's another one. So this is another thing that we made for this show. I sold a bunch of these. I actually filled this up and we sold them. So I think they did pretty well. I don't think they're listed online yet, but maybe William will add them tomorrow or tonight. Probably tomorrow because we've got a lot of stuff to do tonight. And also, new for the show that we made, and I don't have too many of these left because we sold some, but that we didn't make new for the show. And these are stragglers. Are these color blocked earrings? So they come in a pair, obviously, but one side is like it's a different color. So you have a lighter purple and a darker purple. And I mean, if you didn't like that and you wanted them to match, you could just undo the jump ring and flip it around. But they're color block earrings, and I think these are fun. They're a little bit modern. Usually I add like more things to it. I love heavily decorated and patterned things. And then you've got a green, kind of a pastel green with that minty pastel green with that blue. And I've got a pink and a blue. So if you know anybody who, needs that. So yeah, so I made these as well. William, these ones are a little bit, they look super simple and they are simple, but each one of those are hand cut out. So it's not like we have blanks or punches. These are all cut out and they're all filed and sanded. And then William enameled these in different colors. And I want a whole rainbow of these because I really like them. So these will probably go, at least a few of them may go online. And some of them will probably go in the physical store. So there's that. So we made a whole bunch of these. It looks like I I don't know. I looks like there's so many of them, but we sold a bunch over the weekend. So it looks like I probably made 50 pairs, and this is what I have left. So that's good. Anyways, Teresa said, "Did you make that reed frame?" It's out of bamboo, and no, I didn't. But it's handy dandy because it comes apart. The base comes off, so you can store those kind of like files. Like you can stack these up, and they don't take up a ton of room. And if you have the lever backs, I love lever backs because you don't have to worry about them falling off for the display. It takes it's a little bit pain in the butt to put everything on and stuff, but then once you have them on, then it's actually really handy and really convenient to pack up. You don't lose them as much, in my experience. Cynthia says they look good with different colors. I think it's fun. It gives them a little bit of something interesting. It's a little something, something, and it's not completely plain. I mean, this is one of our more modern things that we have, and I think it's nice because it gives it a little bit of something, a little bit of texture, or a little bit of visual interest. So that is it. We've been busy. And here's my little Baba Yaga house again. And here's that brooch. Do you want to see the big brooch that I started? I made this for a show, and then I realized that I got the dates wrong. And I kicked myself so hard because I worked so freaking hard on this thing. And I got the dates wrong. Because there was this show that's in North Carolina called the Material Symposium, and I worked on it really hard, and then I missed the deadline because I got the dates wrong. In my mind, it was a week later than when it was, but that was when they were going to announce who got in the show, and so I missed it. Do you want to see it? I'll show it to you. If you want. Only if you want to see it, though. I see a couple yeses, and Suzanne says that she's ready. All right, so this is not done yet. When I found out that I missed the deadline, I just stopped working on it. So this is another one of my self-portraits, and I made this out of plastic bags. Believe it or not, it's made out of plastic bags. Cynthia may remember these hot pads that we had as kids that my mom had, and they were woven. I don't know what they were made out of. Maybe some kind of woven something. But anyways, that's what it makes me think of, is almost like a hot pad now that I think about it. But it's a big brooch. And the idea of the show was to make something that is out of things that are generally discarded or don't have intrinsic material value, but it's what you do with it that kind of elevates it. And so what I did was I ended up making a yarn out of plastic grocery bags. These, if you're from here, you probably recognize this as the sheets color. And then Cynthia's is massive. That's part of it. It's supposed to be extra big. And so anyway, so I made the yarn out of the plastic bags, and then I ended up kumahimaing the yarn, the plastic bag yarn, and created these really thick ropes, and then attached these ropes, and eventually they'll be filled in. And I thought about embedding certain things in the middle, but I think it'll be more visually um, it'll be more visually impactful if I just have an entire kind of all one. I don't overthink it with adding too many materials, because sometimes what I do is I add everything in the kitchen sink. So it's nice to be able to, since it's so big, that you can kind of go in and really examine it closer. And then I created this back out of a laser cut piece of wood. And the idea behind all these holes is that then I can go in and stitch stuff on top of it. And the trick will be finding the right thing. But I wanted to make my own sequins and stitch them on, but we'll see if that kind of plays into that or not. But so this plays with scale, also with color, and I thought about leaving some of the ends, attaching some of the ends coming off of the bottom, but we'll see. I think it's coming out pretty good. I don't really have a show for this right now, but I still think I'm going to finish it when I have a minute or two of extra time. And by minute, I mean like several days. Because weaving this kumahimo, this was probably, I want to say that it was like 30 feet. The braid was 30 feet, and I've only gotten this far. So I need to add another probably 20 feet worth of braiding to coil around. And I don't. So it's going to take a while for me to, one, save up bags of this specific color, and then number two, to braid it, and then number three is to add it to this piece. But imagine this, like if you had a great big coat and this is being worn, it would definitely pop out. It's not a shrinking violet kind of piece. It's definitely a statement piece. Um, Rashawn says, I wish y'all were closer. Hugs. I wish you were closer too. We miss you, Rashawn. Um, Bunny says, wow, that must have taken forever. It took a long time. I'm pretty fast, but it kept getting tangled up. And that's the thing is like when you're weaving or braiding such a long piece that basically I made my own rope. And when it's that long, it's easy to get tangled up. So that is kind of tricksy to try to do that. You just constantly are untangling things. Teresa says, really like that, Andrew. Thank you. I'm thinking of doing smaller pieces too, so that it's kind of like it's not just done. So maybe I'll make something like a metal piece since I don't have to worry about it being basically and I can do them in different colors and stuff. So we'll see if this um lives on in my work or if it's a one and done kind of thing. For me, I was thinking a little bit about consumerism and kind of like how things are disposable and kind of repurposing those things that otherwise are discarded. And when they're braided together and brought together, then they're a little bit stronger and they can be turned into something more than what they were. But I don't know, I'd like to finish this piece, if nothing else, but we'll see if I get more work of it done. Um, Fran says that's very cool. Thank you. Teresa says knitting with shopping bags is an old craft I have heard about. I've never heard about it. I take that back. There was a lady who in town used to make grocery bags out of grocery bags. And but she was crocheting with them, so this is a little bit of a different kind of technique. Not terribly different, but like I wanted to make it so you couldn't tell what it is. Like you were like, what is that? Um, Cynthia said, we use this type of yarn to make crocheted mats for the local homeless folks. It makes a light, warm mat that is pretty sturdy and light, but it's twisted that much. Yeah, so it took a while to do it, but I think it's kind of an interesting technique. So I might do when I get time, I might finish this. I was thinking of introducing another color. For one, I need to get more bags, but number two, um, I thought about it would be cool to kind of like have an ombre effect. Like if I went down from like red to like an orangey yellow color, because I have an orangey yellow kind of bag situated. But I think I'm gonna just fill it all in with that one color just so that it has that kind of visual impact. I also thought about making another portrait that went inside of this and kind of lived inside of it, but I think that that kind of takes away from it. So maybe in another one I'll do it, but we'll see. You never know. I think that's one of those things where with this new kind of art jewelry that I'm making, there is less rules about what is good and what is bad necessarily. So I think it's exciting because you get to play with different things and experiment with different mediums and make pieces out of garbage bag or things that are not necessarily diamonds or silver or gold or whatever. I do like working with those things, but it is kind of freeing when you can use things that are are not necessarily intended for that. I'm just looking at this, but I have this silver silk that Nile sent, and this would be cool to do a portrait kind of like that. So we'll see. Anyways, Cynthia says it's not twisted as firmly as your. So what it is that when you make these loops and you kind of you connect them with lark's head knots and then you twist them, but then the pieces are then braided with a kumihimo, so they get really tightly done. This makes a rope. The rope is pretty sturdy too. Um, so yeah, I think that's pretty fun. So this is one of those projects I was working on. I would have loved to have shown this in the show. And when I finish it, I may send a picture of it and be like, y'all got any room? Probably not, but I'm gonna, it never hurts to try. And they're gonna be like, no, we don't actually. The deadline passed like 2 weeks ago. But you never know. Maybe they'll have a cancellation and desire to have my head out of plastic bags in there. So you never know. So yeah, we've been busy. I've been busy making things. It's a good time for that. I feel like I'm kind of hitting a stride where we're kind of amping up production here at the cottage. For a couple months or so, we didn't really, I don't know, we kind of fell out of um, moving everything in and unpacking and stuff. It was very daunting, and it's been taking forever to unpack. And it will probably take another year or more to unpack everything, really, to be 100% honest. Um, but yeah, now that we're kind of getting our feet situated in the cottage, I can kind of have that mental space to make things again. And I was talking to William about this because he was like, you shouldn't be working on this. You should be focusing on this and this and this. And I was like, my brain doesn't necessarily work that way. I don't necessarily have a very linear kind of way of thinking. I kind of have to do things as they come to me. And it's not very good for a lot of things. Actually, it's really it's not very productive at all for some things. But for me, I think that as I start making things, I just start making more things, and it inspires me to make other things. And I get really productive once I kind of get into this kind of avalanche of energy, if that makes any sense. I don't know how you all work, if you're very end oriented, where you have a project and you finish it and you can do like one thing and then the other thing and then the other thing. But me, I'm kind of almost like a pollinator where I've got a lot of projects and I'm working them all at once. And I'm like a bee. I go from one project to the next and work on it that way. But also, it just, when I'm making things, it kind of like is that energy is like a forward motion. And it just builds upon itself. I don't know. Is that weird? I don't care if it is. All right. Well, I'm going to go. I got stuff to do. I got things to weave, I guess. I'm in a little bit of a weird headspace lately. And I talked about it a little bit earlier. But, there's just a lot going on in the world right now. And I kind of feel like it's as an empath and somebody who feels things and feels things deeply, it does kind of soak into my brain a little bit. and the only way to kind of work it out is to make things. And I don't know. I'm not somebody who's going to save lives by being a doctor, and I'm not going to affect wide scale change through writing policy and legislation. Um, but as an artist, I kind of feel like what I do because for one, I have to do it. And number two, it's my small way of doing, my calling and what I'm meant to do. So I don't know. Maybe it won't matter, but I'd like to think that it matters a little. That in some small ways, I got somebody to think about things in a different way, or to consider a perspective that they may not have otherwise. Um, I'm not one of those people who is loud about things in my artwork. A lot of my stuff is very subtle and very quiet. Um, and it's not like in your face and very confrontational in that way. um but I do hope that there is something still there. It's not just you look at it and it's a moment of pleasure, but it gets you to think or feel. And I think that's the goal of most artwork, is to have somebody see your work and feel something. And I'm not really concerned about what they feel. I feel like once I put it out into the world, like I have my intentions and I can control how I see things and how I feel about things. But once I release it out into the world, I don't really have control over that. Um, it's kind of like when we were at the show this weekend, somebody was talking about how they were horrified by this booth with bugs in it. And I was like, oh, or they were talking about this booth with the bugs in it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And they're like, no, it's not cool. It's terrible. It's gross. It's disgusting. And for me, I was like, I was really interested in it, but they had their fears about bugs, and it didn't translate well for them. And so that's like, as an artist, like you put things out in the world and you have an idea of what they that will mean or be for somebody else, but that doesn't always happen. um, you can hope for the best, that your message is delivered, but ultimately I think we all come to things and we take to it what we've our own experiences, and that definitely shapes how people see things. Like, I have a series of crow paintings, and we have a dear friend who was attacked by a crow as a child. And so she does not like them. She's like, they're pretty, and I can appreciate the technical skill involved, but I was attacked by a crow as a child, and I've always had a fear of them, and I'm not interested in them in the slightest. And that's fine. But it's interesting that that's the takeaway that she has with it. For me, the crows are kind of like a symbol of their messengers. And sometimes people don't like the messengers, don't shoot the messenger. Sometimes the portents that are brought are not always the most joyful things. And, they're bringing you a message from, and sometimes that message could be good or it could be bad. And so, anyways, I have a different relationship with them. For me, whenever I see them, like this, yesterday we were driving back, and we were driving over this bridge, and we happened to go along this tree-lined street, and there were probably hundreds, if not thousands, of crows all circling around. And we rolled down the window, and you could hear them cawing. And I thought it was just the coolest thing. Um, And to me, it was kind of like a symbol of a big symbol of things to come. So who knows? We'll see. Um, Cynthia says, I make what I want to exist. If some folks don't like it, that's not my problem. And Cynthia said that's called inflexible thinking. Um, oh, and Bonnie says that's a good perspective. And Kathleen says matters a lot. And Bonnie says that's how I am too. And Shaquita says that that's a great way to describe it. I'm a pollinator too. Fran says, I have a lot of projects that I need to finish, but I get done, tracked, and start working on something else, distracted, and start working on something else. Um, Cynthia says, I work in a factory line and in cycles. Um, yeah, it's interesting. I think one of the things for me is that I am very interested in why people make things and how they make things and how they're connected to their creativity. And for me, as somebody who's a creative entrepreneur, I always think about ways that I can kind of hone that process, that creative process, to its most optimal and ample ability. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But for me, I have these conditioning rituals that I go through in my mind and sometimes in my physical space as well. Oh, I'm on the twisty chair that doesn't have a back, y'all. I must bow. Um, there's that was almost serious. Um, Anyways, be like, I've fallen, I can't get up. At least I'd have all of you out there to maybe call the ambulance or something. But anyways, so like when I'm starting to make stuff, I have to be kind of in the right headspace. I can't just make things if I'm not in the mood to make things. If I'm not in the mood to make things, I might as well not even do it because I struggle more than if it for me. It's just it doesn't work out very well. Um, there are times when I've had to do things that I don't want to do because that's how I make money. Um, and it's not always my favorite. But you kind of have to knuckle down and do it. As my dad would say, you have to grit your teeth and do it. But naturally, when I'm kind of like in the flow of things, um, I feel like it's kind of like um, conditioning, mental conditioning, so that you kind of trigger certain things in your brain that will make you do certain things. It's kind of like when you train an animal that it's time to eat. When Paolo and Babette were little, we'd go whenever we would bring the food, and so they would come running whenever they heard that sound, or whenever the door would open. Barnaby runs to go and see William, kind of thing. So in my mind, it's not so different, but it's creating conditions that are kind of optimal to get into that flow space. So I will listen to music or I'll listen to things that kind of get me into the rhythm of making. I'll light a candle or kind of get into that headspace. And I've talked a little bit about this before, and I call it ritual. It's any process that can be repeated to create a result. So it's kind of like if I wear this shirt and I ring this bell, then my sports team will win. Um, but like every day and with creativity and not so much with a sports team. Um, Suzanne says, same here. I can't force creativity. Um, I kind of feel like it's not. I get like I don't want to force creativity, but I also want to create the optimal conditions where it can thrive. So it's kind of a push and pull with that. Cynthia says, I've learned how to use breathing and meditation to get to the right space. Sometimes I don't feel like it, but if I can take a 20-minute walk and just focus on what I want to make, I can get myself in the space. Um, yeah, I think that's. You know, I'm just gonna get up and move it because I'm don't want to fall on my face in front of y'all. Um, but I also think that there's something to be said about going for a walk. And earlier I had talked about doing walking meditations when Marianne was mentioned about the rabbits. Um, and so for me, I think it's also one of those things, like a physical thing too, is like you get your blood pumping and then it starts moving through your body, and you just get that kind of energy from doing a walk or so. Um, and so I see that that's a great value if you can do it. But I do like I did this little mini workshop with Candy Cooper's people during a retreat one time about creating that kind of creative, um, like those creative rituals. And yeah, um, I could probably spend my whole life studying and investigating these things and seeing if it works out or not. Um, anyways, I said I was going to go, and then I kept talking, so I'm going to go this time. But thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight and looking at the things I've been making recently, talking about a lot of things, some easy things and some hard things. Um, I appreciate that we have this safe space that I can share these ideas. Um, you know, it's more rare than we would like to think. I know that sounds kind of weird, but it's true. I would like to think that we are guaranteed safe spaces to be able to express ourselves freely. Um, but, you know, that doesn't always happen. So thank you so much for allowing me to share with you all and for you sharing with us. We've missed being with you all. William and I talked about it over the past couple days about how it feels weird that we haven't been online to check in and chat with everybody. We're like, wonder what blah 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 is doing. Wonder what this. Blah, 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 blah. And so it's weird being away. But hopefully, things will be back to normal. We're gonna have maybe the gemstone sale tomorrow, so keep your eyes peeled around 5 o'clock. We picked out a lot of really cool stuff. Not a ton of stuff. This was not a big major buying trip, just a little cherry picking. Um, but I hope you like it. I like it. So we'll have that. And then on the website, or maybe here, I don't know what the workflow will dictate, but we'll have lots of new art beads coming soon. And hopefully you all will enjoy those. All right. Thank you so much. We have so much gratitude for all of you out there. Thank you for tuning in and for supporting us and allowing us to live our best lives and to be creative entrepreneurs. Without all of you out there, we couldn't do it. So thank you so much. See ya.